getting old-fashioned, but we're putting a modern twist on it. We're gonna make some applesauce. Fall is here, apples are plentiful, and today I'm gonna show you how you can make homemade applesauce in a snap in your pressure cooker. So what I have here is 8 cups of Honey Crisp apples that I have peeled, cored, and just roughly chopped. I literally just cut both sides off the other, and then I cut everything in halves or in quarters, just big chunks. I like applesauce to be chunky, so that's how we're gonna do it. If you like yours to be smooth, I'll show you later how you can process it to be more smooth. We're gonna use the juice from 2 lemons, 1 cup of brown sugar, a tablespoon of apple pie spice. If you don't have apple pie spice, you can just use plain cinnamon if you like that all by itself. But apple pie spice is just a combination of cinnamon, ground ginger, nutmeg, clove, and allspice. We're also going to use approximately a cup of water. Your pressure cooker may be different from my pressure cooker, so I'm going to ask you to consult your manufacturer's instruction booklet so that you will know exactly what to do with apples. Sometimes it's a little bit different. Sometimes the amount of water that you need to add is a little bit different. All right, so obviously we're gonna start with our apples. In they go. I'm using my Go Wise 10-quart pressure cooker. There goes our lemon juice, our brown sugar, and our apple pie spice. Of course, if you prefer no spice, you can go with that. If you prefer no sugar, you can go with that. Look, you don't have to have sugar in here if you don't want it. The apples have their own natural sweetness, and that's entirely up to you. And right now, this is smelling like apple pie. I am kidding you not. So good. In with our water. Now remember, you need the water in order to create the steam, in order to make the pressure and the pressure cooker work. So I'm just giving this all a good stir. Apples tend to create foam, just like rice or beans do. So you can put a pat of butter in here. That will reduce the foaming, and it will help you make sure that you're not going to ruin your pressure cooker. I'm not going to add the butter today, but if you decide you want to make a big batch of applesauce, you can go ahead and do that. But remember, don't fill it more than 3/4 full with apples, and if you do that, make sure you add a pat of butter or a splash of vegetable oil or something to reduce the foaming, because we don't want you ruining your very expensive machine that makes our life a whole lot easier. On with our lid, and I'm gonna go ahead and set this. I can just set manual, and I can set it for 6 minutes, and it's gonna be on high. And then that is just gonna do its thing, and we're gonna let this natural release for about 10 minutes, and after that happens, I'll be back and I'll show you what this looks like. All right, this pressurized for 6 minutes, and I let it come to a natural release for 10, and then I just released the remaining pressure, which wasn't very much. As you can see, we have nice chunky cooked apples, and all we're gonna do is we're gonna take our potato masher, and at this point, this is when you decide how chunky do you like your applesauce. I do not like my applesauce to be like baby food, but if you wanted to make baby food out of apples, you could certainly do it like this, and you could just either put it through a food mill, or you can use your immersion blender and make it super smooth. If you're gonna make this into baby food, I highly recommend leaving the sugar out. It's just not necessary, and you don't want to get your babies hooked on that right up front. But now it's a little bit watery. I'm just gonna hit the saute button, and I'm gonna let this kind of reduce a little bit, and this comes up to heat pretty quick, and since the pot is already warm, it's not gonna take very long. So I'm gonna let this reduce. This defaults to 20 minutes on the timer, so we're not gonna let this reduce for 20 minutes, just, you know, a little bit. You can see it's already come up to a simmer. We're gonna let this simmer for about 5 or 6 or 7 minutes until some of this water cooks out and the mixture reduces a little. And remember, as this cools, it's going to thicken up, so you're gonna keep it in the fridge anyway, and we're gonna go from there. So I'll be back as soon as this is reduced down, and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, I have been reducing the applesauce for about 10 minutes, and I'm just gonna turn it off now because we're good. When you get to your desired consistency, and I'm thinking about there because, like I said, remember, apples have a lot of pectin. This is going to thicken up a bit as it cools down, and we're going to keep it in the fridge, so it's going to be the perfect consistency. I just don't want it to be too liquidy, that is all. So now all I have to do is pop this in a container and then let it cool off. I'm going to bring you back in just a few. Well, there you have it. Our applesauce has been put into a container, and I have some in a serving dish. This is still warm. It's very chunky. It does look like it has a little bit more liquid than you might like, but as this cools, that's going to thicken. So keep that in mind. Remember, apples have a lot of natural pectin, and as this cools off, it's going to thicken up quite a bit. So you don't want to cook all the water out of it. Otherwise, you'll end up, I mean, unless that's what you're going for, you'll end up with jam. So this is super delicious, and I know you're gonna love it. Wow, super fast, super easy, and if you have that pressure cooker, let's keep using it. So that's how you make delicious old-fashioned applesauce in the pressure cooker. I hope you give this a try, and I hope you love it. Okay, we're gonna go over all the ingredients, and then we're just gonna go ahead and start making this cake. This is one of the best applesauce cakes ever. It's just, I call it a snack cake because it gets no frosting, no glaze, no icing. It just stands on its own, and when we serve it, we sprinkle it with a little powdered sugar if we want to, but other than that, this cake is delicious and super satisfying. You can make this in a 9x13 pan like I'm going to, or in a couple of loaf pans, and then you could have like applesauce bread that you can slice up. This is super delicious, and I love it. Grew up with it, and I know you're gonna love it too. So this is a super easy recipe. 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 cups of granulated sugar, 2 cups of applesauce. This is unsweetened applesauce. You use whatever you have on hand. 1 cup of vegetable oil. I'm using sunflower oil. 2 eggs. 1 cup of golden raisins. You can use regular raisins or dried cranberries if you want, or you can leave the raisins out. You can also add a cup of chopped pecans or walnuts if you choose. Today I'm leaving those out. A teaspoon each baking powder, baking soda, and salt. We're going to be using 2 teaspoons of apple pie spice, and we're going to be using 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. The best part about this cake is it's just what I called it. It's a dump cake. You just put everything in a bowl and you mix it all up, and it's super easy. In with our flour, our sugar, baking powder, baking soda, salt, 2 teaspoons of our apple pie spice. Boom and boom. And then I like to just give this a sift, see, because I got clumps in my sugar. All right, and then we're just going to start adding our wet ingredients. There's our applesauce, eggs, oil. The oil in this makes it super moist, and then you can just start mixing it together. I feel like that's not enough spice, so I'm gonna add another teaspoon of apple pie spice because I can. You can adjust this to your liking as far as the seasoning goes. Now, only thing we have left to do is pop our raisins on in here. And like I said, you don't have to use golden raisins. You can use traditional dark raisins, or you can even put dried cranberries or currants or chopped up dried apples in here. It's entirely up to you. And you can put nuts in here too. I actually prefer the applesauce cake without the nuts in it. I like nuts in the banana cake that I make. Okay, now I have a 9x13 pan that has been sprayed with vegetable oil spray, and it is ready to receive this batter. Just make sure that your cake batter is level in the pan. I have my oven preheated at 350 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and pop this in. This is going to take between 35 and 40 minutes to bake, and it will be done when a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean with no signs of wet batter and perhaps only a few crumbs. I'll be back when it's ready to come out of the oven, and I'll show you what it looks like. This just came out of the oven, and it baked for around 40 minutes, and you can see I tested it twice with a toothpick and it came out clean. It's too warm to cut into right now, so we're going to let this cool for about an hour or so, and then we're going to come back and we're going to serve a piece, and we're going to let you see what it looks like. All right, our applesauce cake is cooled off enough to serve it. It's still nice and warm. You can serve this warm at room temperature at your choice. This cuts into approximately 12 to 16 pieces depending on how large you cut them, and doesn't last long in my house because this is perfect for breakfast, for a snack, for dessert, any time at all. It's perfect for packing in a lunchbox, so that's a really great option. If you like to put a homemade dessert in your kid's lunch, I would probably cut this piece in half, and that's what I would give my child. I think that you're gonna love this. The only thing we need to do now, put a little powdered sugar on that, and it's ready to serve. We're not gonna taste it right now because we're getting ready to eat our supper, but I promise you it's delicious. We have this quite often in our house, and I know you're gonna love it. All right, we're gonna go over all of the ingredients. I'm doing an apple pie arugula, which is a cookie. It's a little Jewish style cookie or Israeli cookie, whatever you wanna call that. So the dough is gonna start off with a brick of cream cheese, 2 sticks of butter. This is unsalted butter. You can use salted butter, it doesn't matter. A cup of sour cream, 4.5 cups of all-purpose flour, a quarter of a cup of sugar, and a tablespoon of vanilla extract. The filling is approximately 2 cups of grated apples. You can use whatever eating apple you like. I used 3 medium-sized apples, and I peeled them and I grated them on the box grater, and I did toss them in a little bit of lemon juice. I'm going to use a 1/2 cup of golden raisins, a 1/2 cup of sugar, a quarter of a cup or a 1/2 stick of butter, and then this is 2 teaspoons of apple pie spice. What we have in here is our cream cheese and our butter, and I have the mixer fitted with the cookie paddles, and we're gonna go ahead and we're going to beat those 2 things together. Now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add our sour cream. Now this, and when I say this is a very short dough, I am not joking. This is a very short dough. It reminds me a lot of my keefly dough that I do at Christmas time. It doesn't have any eggs in it. It only relies on the fat to hold everything together. So we're gonna give this a little bit of a whirl. Add our sugar and our vanilla extract. And then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go add all of our flour. That's 4.5 cups of flour at one time. And then I'm gonna wanna put the lid on for this. Now what we're gonna do is grab some plastic wrap, and I'll be right back, and we'll put this on the plastic wrap and wrap it up to put it in the refrigerator. I'm just gonna go ahead and tip this dough out. Okay, this is just gonna go in the fridge for about a 1/2 hour, just so that we could get all of those little pieces of flour to get absorbed by the butter and the cream cheese and the sour cream. And then we're gonna bring it out and we're gonna make our cookies. But while this is chilling, we're gonna go over to the stove and work on the filling. Chilling, filling. Okay, let's go. All right, we've melted our butter. We're over at the stove and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna make our filling. So all of my apples are gonna go right in this pan. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna plop the apples in here, saute them in the butter. I am going to go ahead and add the golden raisins. You can leave those out, that is optional, but I think they're going to be delicious. Okay, I'm going to add my sugar, apple pie spice seasoning. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this saute, and I'm going to let the water cook out of it, and it's going to intensify and reduce, but I'll bring you back when it's time to just turn it off so you can see what it looks like. All right. It's been about 10 minutes, and I've had this over medium-high heat. My burner goes from a low or a 1 to a high, which is a 9. And I have my burner on a 7. So I literally stirred it. We turned off the camera. I walked away from it. I just came back to it. And what you want is, you don't want any liquid in the bottom of this pan. You see how it's starting to kind of bind together with itself, and there's no liquid. And if you kind of look here, it's starting to sizzle like it's gonna caramelize. And now we're gonna just remove it from the heat. I'm gonna turn off the heat. We're gonna set it aside, and then we're gonna go ahead and we will build our apple pie arugula, and we'll bake it off. It'll be great. All right, we have allowed our dough to sit in the refrigerator. It's been a little over 1/2 hour. Our filling is all ready, but now we're gonna proceed with making some of these arugula cookies. Now I'm gonna cut this dough into 4 pieces, as evenly as you can. It's not like imperative that they all be exactly the same, but I'm gonna keep one out, And I'm gonna put the other 3 away for later. Now, I have my board with a little bit of bench flour. And what I want to do is just kind of mash this into a circle, okay? And make sure you have lots of bench flour because it's going to help the dough to spread out a lot more easily. What you want to do is you want to roll this into a circle. All right, now we're going to cut this into wedges, and the easiest way to do that is to cut it in half one way and half the other way, and then you're going to determine how many rugula you want to make this into. So we're going to get 1 dozen out of 1 circle of dough. Now we're just going to go ahead and put some of this apple filling. You don't need a lot. Right on in there on each wedge. Check yourself and see if some have need of a little bit more. Okay, I'm gonna go grab a baking sheet, line it with a parchment paper. My oven is preheated to 350 degrees, and then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start rolling these up. All right, I've gone ahead and I've rolled up all but the last 3 of our first dozen of our apple pie rugula, and really it's so simple. You know, you make those crescents in a tube, right? You just gently wrap this up. Make sure you get all that filling tucked in. Make sure you've got your point down, and then stick it on your tray. Simple. We'll do it again. And you know what? If they don't, you don't have to curve them, you know, like a crescent. It's up to you. Sometimes it's just easier to just rest them on the tray. Just like that. Then, the last thing we're gonna do, I have a little egg wash here, and this is just 1 egg beaten with a tablespoon of water, and we're gonna brush that on there. And I have a little crystal sugar. This is gonna give it a little crunch. It's gonna make it look pretty, and it's gonna add a little extra sweetness. My oven is preheated to 350 degrees. We're gonna pop these in there for approximately 12 to 15 minutes, or until they're golden brown and a little bit puffed. I'll bring you back when it's time to take them out of the oven. This is my second batch, and when they are lightly browned, this is going to take approximately 15 to 18 minutes, and it's a personal preference. I like mine to be very lightly browned, and you'll be able to tell when they're done. And then if you flip one over gently, you'll see the bottom is browned, and that's exactly where you want it to be. Let these cool on the pan for 5 minutes before removing them to a cooling rack, and let them cool completely before enjoying. I'll bring you back in just a few minutes, and I'll show you what they look like, all presented on a beautiful platter. Well, there you have it. These have cooled, and we went and we ate supper, and now we're going to finish up our video by sharing these delicious apple pie rugula. We already tasted them. I'll go ahead and open one up for you so you see what it looks like on the inside. All those shredded apples and that beautiful flaky crust. It's so delicious. It just melts in your mouth. You are gonna love them, I promise.